The Crown says if hate preacher Abu Hamza can get a fair trial, then so can serial rapist Malcolm Rewa. Rewa's case was back at the High Court in Auckland today, where his lawyer argued that extensive media coverage of his client and his case has contaminated the jury pool. Paul Chambers argued Rewa's third trial for the murder of Susan Burdett should be stopped from going ahead, but the Crown has pointed to overseas examples and cases closer to home where jurors have been told to only consider the evidence before them, despite widespread publicity. Our excellent court reporter Edward Gay has been following the case and is sitting beside me. Now, hi Eddie, nice to have you in the studio. The Crown cited some big trials. What did they draw out?
Well, the Crown prosecutor, Gareth Case, he pointed to this case of Abu Hamza. He's the radical, one-eyed Egyptian cleric who gave these fiery sermons in London. And, you know, he was jailed for soliciting murder and racial hatred. But Mr. Case... And Mr. Case pointed out he got a fair trial. He also pointed closer to home the case of John Barlow, who faced 3 trials.
Jean and Eugene?
Jean and Eugene
yeah,
Thomas, that's
yeah.
right. And he faced 3 trials for the murders of those businessmen. And again, Mr. Case said that the courts had found that juries could ignore the publicity, could ignore this widespread publicity, repeated news stories about trials and still reach a verdict based on the evidence given in court. And this will be Rewa's third trial as well for murder, for the murder of Miss Burdett, who she was found raped and bludgeoned to death in her South Auckland home back in '92. Rewa, he's currently serving this sentence of preventive detention, minimum non-parole period of 22 years for the rape and other sexual offending against 25 women. 2 juries were unable to reach verdicts on this charge of murder. Today, much was also made of this TVNZ program that went to air last weekend on the dramatisation of Tana Porter's case, and of course an actor played Malcolm Rewa in that program. Mr. Case said that program was obviously not a documentary, it was a dramatisation. The makers had used artistic licence. Everyone who saw it would know that. It was obviously not a documentary. He said he had also been told by TVNZ that they were going to bring this program down 6 months before the trial. It would no longer be available online. So he said it definitely had limited scope.
So that's what the Crown is saying. Malcolm Rewa's lawyer is saying there is so much coverage, the jury pool is so contaminated by all of this that his client still can't get a fair trial. That's the argument they're running. Yeah,
Paul Chambers actually described the media coverage as cancerous, and he said there was this widespread coverage of the Privy Council's finding in terms of Tana Porter that quashed Tana Porter's convictions, you'll recall. Also the widespread coverage of Mr. Porter's bid for compensation as well. And added on top of that, a review of the police's handling of the investigation of Rewa that's for the rapes. He said jurors will have a conscious or a subconscious bias towards his client. He said it had gone beyond the point where a judge could merely say to a jury, that standard warning they give them about only paying attention to what they hear in the courtroom, ignoring everything else. Mr. Chambers said it had gone beyond that point. He said that the TVNZ program had reached an audience of 240,000 people and more had watched it online. Justice Fenning, he's the Chief High Court Judge, he's reserved his decision. But he said he hoped to have that decision ready by the end of next month, end of August, when Rewa's case is back in court, just for an administrative hearing, but it'll be back in court at that point.
So we're potentially going to have a decision on this within a month or so?
Within the month,
wow.
Yeah, that's right. And of course the trial, that's not set to go ahead until February next year. There could be more pre-trial arguments before then, though.
Thanks, Eddie. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to you covering the decision.
Thanks,
when it happens.